Hello, and welcome to the next session on building partnerships. In this particular session, we want to focus on reaching out to the private sector. Now, these are businesses and companies in your country whose overall aim is to make a profit margin. These kinds of organizations are typically not interested in what is happening in the communities that they're working in. Or sometimes they are interested and maybe they are aware of the challenges. However, they're not sure how they can help out. And sometimes they just don't have the expertise to help or do anything about it. Now, the work that you're doing is very important, particularly because you're leading the way in solving a challenge that you have identified in your community. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time learning about how we can get these businesses who are working in the private sector to participate in your community action project. I hope you're looking forward to it and are getting ready to put these principles into action. Click on the next slide. So what is private sector engagement? Private sector engagement is about bringing the private sector into the poverty alleviation agenda. It's about helping the private sector change the way that they're doing business so that their activities benefit the communities that they're working in, that they benefit the poor, and also benefit their business. And often this is where the difficulty comes in trying to define the benefits for the private sector company. Most nonprofits or most non-projects want to get private sector to invest into their business, but they don't know how to make this valuable to a private sector company. Private sector engagement is also about giving the private sector a seat at the table in an active way during program design and process, and retaining that level of engagement throughout the program lifecycle. The seat at the table needs to come at an early stage so that there is buy-in and full participation. What we often find with most companies and most small projects is that they want to bring in the private sector when they've already designed their project and they've already decided what they want to do, and then they think, oh, I'm sure anybody would love this. But most people will have buy-in if they're involved in the very early stages of you designing your program. So make sure that you're bringing in people at an early enough stage. Private sector engagement is not a donor relationship. Neither is it corporate social responsibility. A limited corporate social responsibility project is where the private sector is providing only financial resources to meet social or public relations goals. So private sector engagement is not the same as CSR. We need to understand that. It is not material aid or just the private sector donating goods to a program or participants. You can have somebody who's a donor and doing that, but that is not private sector engagement the way that we've described it. And it is not a simple business transaction of selling goods or services to a program or to participants. Now let's spend a bit of time talking about why private sector engagement is so important. The first reason that I've stated is collective impact. Collective impact is based on the idea that social problems arise from and persist because of a complex combination of actions and omissions by players in all sectors. Therefore, they can only be solved by the coordinated efforts of all those players. That means businesses, government agencies, charitable organizations, and members of the affected population. Business brings essential assets to collective impact efforts. A business knows how to define and achieve objectives within a limited time and budget. And this is something that nonprofits are not very good at, or small projects are not very good at. Businesses understand the change management the art of negotiation, corporate pragmatism, accountability, data-driven decision making, etc. All these are skills that may not, that you may not have, but are important to have in solving community challenges. So by partnering with the private sector, you have access to all these skills, such as, limited time and budgets, and understanding change management, negotiation, corporate pragmatism. So if you have somebody who has a strong background on that, that's likely to help your project move forward quickly. In addition to this, businesses whose growth and resilience are constrained by societal problems have a powerful motive to kickstart social change. Another reason why it's important to bring the private sector in is that typically a lot of us want to work with the government, but governments respond to most influential interests and are often hindered by partisan divides. There's a lot of bureaucracy in the governments that we're working in. Things are slow moving, and sometimes you need somebody who's just acting really fast and with your best interests at heart, and not arguing or trying to solve things within politics in order for you to move forward quickly. Finally, in as much as you can partner with non-governmental organizations, we know that most NGOs are limited by resources and clout to command attention from governments and global corporations. So if you really want to make an impact, sometimes you need to work with somebody who doesn't have limited resources and a big enough budget to allow you to do what you want to do. Easier said than done. I know that's what you were thinking. So how then do we bring the private sector into our line of business? How do we get them engaged? I'm going to introduce you to a principle that we call shared value and teach you a little bit about that. Hopefully, after you understand that, you'll have a good idea of how you can bring a business to partner with your project. Shared value is a principle which involves creating economic value in a way that also creates value for society by addressing its needs and challenges. Businesses must reconnect company success with social progress. This is not social responsibility, neither is it philanthropy or even sustainability, but it is the new way to achieve economic success. So what do we need to do this? We need to highlight a greater appreciation on community needs. We have a responsibility to let the businesses out there know what the community's needs are. Secondly, we need to understand the basis of company productivity. So what are the businesses that are working within your community and what makes them productive? Once we've understood this, we need to have the ability to collaborate across the for-profit and the non-profit boundaries. How can we make it work? How can you as a non-profit partner with the for-profit organization and make sure that each of your goals are met? And then finally, governments must learn how to regulate in ways that enable shared value rather than work against it. So now that you know what shared value is, it is important for you to think about how your project can include a potential partner so that they can see the value that your vision will bring to the community and to their line of business. And more importantly, how it will help them maintain their profit margins. Maybe, say for example, you're working with farmers in your community and you want to partner with the local supermarkets or restaurants in your city. Your farmers could be suppliers to a chain of supermarkets and restaurants in your city. This way, you're contributing directly to the value chain of a company, and they can still meet their goal of profit margins, while at the same time, they're doing good for the community, while they're creating opportunities for these small-time farmers. So start to also think about how you can communicate your message or show the value that you create for companies who may want to get involved with your community action project. In fact, Why don't you click on the next slide and let's do a small exercise. Right now, you're going to do a self-reflective exercise. And I suggest that you take about 15 minutes or 15 to half an hour to think about these things. You're going to answer the 4 questions that appear on your screen right now. And these questions are, how can you bring the private sector company as a contributor into your project? When is the best time to do this? And then I want you to make a list of potential partners or businesses that are working in your community who you think may be interested in the work that you're doing. And then finally, I want you to think about how you can contribute to the value chain of a business so that you can cause it to still meet its goals, which are to remain profitable. So, pause, and then when you've written your thoughts down, you can come back and press play again. See you shortly. Oh, back already? You're done? That was fast. Okay, now that you've done that little exercise, I hope things are starting to look a little bit clearer and you're starting to see how you can get a private business involved in the work that you're doing. So as we're coming to the end of this session, there are a couple of things that you're expected to do. First of all, you're going to listen to a podcast. And this webinar is going to teach you a little bit more about what nonprofits or small projects like yours can do to get the private sector interested in what they're doing. Then you're going to visit a website and read more about shared value. This will help you to understand, or if there's any gaps, this will fill in all these gaps because of course we can't put everything in a PowerPoint presentation. And then finally, there'll be an optional discussion forum and you'll get to share about private sector partnerships that you've had in the past or currently have and what has made these successful or what lessons you have learned from them. Well, that's it for now. It's a lot to take in, but hopefully after you've gone through all the materials and maybe the discussions, you'll have a better understanding of what creating shared value is all about. The important thing to remember is that it's not only possible, but it's also important for us to bring the private sector to the table when we're solving challenges in our communities. So I challenge you, find a way to get them involved in what you are doing. All right then, see you next time. Bye-bye.